Okay, let's do that. Recorders on. Ed, hit it.
Hi, this is Ed Peisner with Vroom Vroom Veer, and you're listening to Jeff Smith. I guess that's all you want me to say, huh? Or should it have been Jeff Smith with Vroom Vroom Veer?
That's perfect. Mark, why don't you say something too?
Yeah, you do.
Who
it
are
too,
you?
Mark.
What you want to say the org, right? Ed?
Yes, you definitely want to say the org.
Go ahead, Mark. You do that.
Oh.
I'm used to telling my story.
Right. Hi, this is Mark Berkman with the Organization for Social Media Safety here on Vroom Vroom Veer.
Perfect.
Wow.
And I spit on a frog. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that.
No
All right,
problem.
I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Edna Keep, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Great, Jeff. Thanks so much for having me.
So you are at ednakeep.com. How convenient.
Yes. That's so easy, right?
Yeah, I like it. It's easy to say and easy to remember. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
You know, I'm most excited, Jeff, about helping people buy their first or second apartment building because I still remember when we were approached and said, Edna, you should buy an apartment building. And we'd own a few houses at the time. And I went, we can't because we don't own enough houses.
That's millions of dollars. Right?
Yeah, I can't do that.
I don't have that much money. How can I possibly do that? Right.
Exactly. That was our thought. And he said, no, you can, and I'll show you how. And before I left his office, I made an offer on an apartment building that fast.
You really could, and you did.
And did 24 unit, and he walked us through the whole
24 unit. Wow, that's awesome.
And in a couple months, we own that building.
Good for you. So we're going to go back in time, right? Because this is Vroom Vroom Veer. We're going to talk about you weren't always a successful multi-million-dollar real estate investor. That's not how you came into the world, right?
Exactly.
So you're up there in Canada, in Alberta, Saskatchewan, right?
Saskatchewan, yeah.
Saskatchewan. And you were a 16-year-old single mother living in subsidized housing with a daughter in childcare that was also subsidized. So we'll get into that. And there's also, like, I'm sure you also had a life as a financial advisor. So that colors the investment idea, right? So you're kind of focused on helping people figure out how to have fun.
With their money, yes.
While making money, right? Having fun while making money, right? So let's get into this story about, so what was it? How did you end up being a single mom at 16? What's that story? Everybody's got a story, right? There's a really cute dude. That's
that was one of them.
Right.
You know, I think the biggest thing is, you know, I lived in a small town, Jeff. And,
Me too.
And I didn't have enough to be challenged by. So I had to get my own challenges in life. So that was my first really big one. And
okay, you picked the big one.
and it was probably the toughest thing being a single mom, because I was a single mom till my daughter was out on her own, like 20 years old before I got married. And it was tough. And we have a tough relationship even to this day because of it. You know, being a single mom, 16 years old, raising a kid, like, you're not that smart, you know, even though I came from a good family, I did everything possible. But, you know, I do think that if I hadn't had a child at that age, I wouldn't be where I am today. Because things started to happen to me. One is I kind of lost respect of people that I respected, and that bothered me a lot. Uh-huh. And I think I've been fighting for that respect ever since, you know?
Okay.
And so then I'm driven. I'm just driven to do more, be the best me I can be. And I believe it all started from getting that kind of
living through that. Okay.
At 16 years old, yeah.
So what was it like? So you felt disrespected yourself?
Yes,
Okay.
and
Just because people
disappointed, I
kind of
think,
like
in
look
myself,
down on
too.
you. Oh,
Yeah.
you're the 16-year-old with a kid.
Yeah, yeah. And how are you ever going to do anything in life now? Like you totally screwed up,
And
girl.
you were like, okay, challenge accepted.
Yeah,
Eventually,
yeah.
right?
But yeah, eventually, but not right away. For a long time, I limited myself, thinking, well, because I was an average student in school, Jeff, C student,
Right.
and it wasn't until later on in life, actually, when I started dealing with real estate, that I read a book of Robert Kiyosaki's titled "Why Do A Students Work for C Students and B Students Work for the Government?" And you know what? I loved that book because I was a C student, and then I realized
Wow.
that C students have strengths that A students and B students don't have.
Right.
And it was only at that point when I really started to recognize that strength that I was really able to take off and utilize it. Before that, I just always had this voice in my head that said, who are you to think you can do better?
Right. I've had that voice. Yes.
Yeah. And people were always saying
Who the
things
hell do you think
like,
you are? Kind of.
yeah.
Yes.
And learn to live within your means. And, Jeff, my first job was making $1,200 a month, and people were telling me that I had to learn to live within my means. And I'm going, if I'm going to learn something, I think I want to learn how to be rich, not learn how to live within my means. So rebelled. And
Okay.
I still remember my mother had said to me, you never listened to a damn word I said since you were 12 years old. So yeah, whatever you want to do, you do it. You're not going to listen to me anyway.
Yeah.
And, but I had an idea. I had ideas. I listened for the conversations where people had got rich. And I learned a few things on the way of what I could do. I couldn't do everything, absolutely, but there were things I could do. And I just put one foot in front of the other until I was.
That's interesting because, I know a lot of childhood experiences shaped me, but some of those really important things make you sort of stand up, rebel, right? Like what you're talking about. Like when people are telling you A and you're like, not for me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those are nice because it really kind of sort of cements a choice that becomes part of you, right? Like who you are going to be in the world.
Exactly. Like I really remember Oprah Winfrey saying that she was remembered sitting on the steps and her mom telling her, you got to learn to hang laundry on the line, girl, because if you don't, where are you going to be in your life? And she said, yeah, I just kind of always knew that wasn't for me. And I'm going, yeah, I can relate.
And it's not hard. So, it's an easy backup plan. If I need to do that, I can.
If I fail at everything else,
I can still do that.
Yeah, I can still do that. I can get good at that. I can probably get good at that.
True. Wow. Yeah, you're right. So let's talk about what was your big veer, maybe around 20. What was the first big step?
Well, I didn't really have a big step around 20. I got a job in a doctor's office.
Okay.
Pretty much out of high school. I waitressed for a little while and then I got a job there. I actually really liked it because it was 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, gave me my weekends off.
Right. Okay.
And, but I wasn't making very much money there again.
Gotcha.
And that was and at one point I was just so bored and I was almost depressed. I just hated it.
Now, are you still with your daughter at this point?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she was always living with me. My parents helped out a lot.
Right.
And for a long time, we actually lived with them. So they babysat a lot. But when I got my job, she started going to subsidized daycare.
Okay.
And subsidized housing, subsidized daycare, I was able to live on the $1,200 a month, right?
Okay.
That I
Right.
But again, I still felt limited and I wanted more. And
you kind of
again,
want to escape that whole situation.
I was bored. I just couldn't imagine doing this clerical work the rest of my life, even though my bosses loved me and they, really liked that I worked hard.
You kind of fell into that I'm good at this thing I hate sort of scenario.
Exactly. And
Sounds
then
familiar to me. I did that too.
And still felt like when I moved on to do something better, that it was just a slight increase. So I got a little bit more money, a little bit better job in a different city. And then I did that for another while. Then I took a lot of self-study stuff like secretarial and accounting clerk and office administrator because I could never give up a job because I had a kid to support. So I couldn't give up one to go to another. I always had to do something on the side and build it up. And that's actually how I got into financial services.
Oh, really?
I was working as
Okay.
an office administrator at a construction company. Really liked it. My boss was just amazing. And I had, responsibility and stuff, making pretty decent money for what I was expecting in my life, 43,000 at that time.
Okay.
Working again Monday to Friday. But the last couple of years I was there, I was only working Monday to Thursday, had every Friday off, because I was building my financial planning practice on the side.
Oh, nice.
I was studying to become a certified financial planner. But the big thing that happened there is my boss at this company set up a mandatory pension plan for the employees,
cool.
100 employees,
Mandatory.
that they
Nice.
had to
I like it.
invest through me. Yeah. So I had an instant 100 clients.
Oh, they had to invest through you too.
They had to. Yeah.
Wow. Look at that.
We set it up as a group plan. So
Nice.
it came off their paychecks.
Mhm.
And so I was their financial advisor. And he just always
cool.
said to me,
Wow, nice.
it was huge for me. He says, when you go to leave, all I ask is you give me lots of notice because I'm really going to miss you. So I gave him 6
Right.
months notice eventually when I
Perfect.
decided to leave and go do this full time. And, even then I had all kinds of people tell me, are you crazy? Like, these guys love you. You got it so good. You're working 4 days a week now. You're still earning the same money. Why would you give up something like that to go into straight commission world? Like, you're crazy.
Right.
And I went, oh,
right.
well,
those are those A and B students. Yes.
my manager told me,
Right.
he said, because I made 20,000 part-time that year. And he said, just imagine, Edna, he says, if you can focus on this like a 40-hour work week, you should be able to easily earn triple.
Right.
And so that was my point where I went, okay, yeah, you're probably right. So I quit and
Right.
went, and I did. The first year I earned triple on that business. But so I was making 43,000 at my job, made 20,000 part-time as a financial advisor. My
Right.
first year full-time made 67,000.
Wow.
So it was like
A little bit more.
He
really.
was
Yeah.
right. 3 times I
Yeah,
did.
right.
So then I hired assistant the second year.
Wow.
I
Now
made
you're feeling
100
like a boss.
I did 187,000 my second year in financial services. And I never looked back after that. It was like, okay,
and that was all your
own.
own thing, right? That was your own business.
Yeah, well, I worked under an umbrella of a company,
Okay.
but I got paid like basically 85% commission on everything I sold. It was very
Gotcha.
commission based. If you didn't sell, you didn't eat, sort of thing. And that's kind of how I approached every week. Or every month. It's like it's a new month.
But that's
and I'm
very
around
much
here.
good. It's almost like good practice for doing your own thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
very
because
much so.
it's like if you don't sell, you don't eat. And that's
Right.
what it is in business, right? That's
Yeah,
you-
it totally is.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can earn a vacation, but you can't take a vacation.
Exactly. And I was a financial advisor for 15 years. I was doing pretty well, making about 250, 300,000 a year.
Okay.
But then I got introduced to real estate, and I didn't intend to quit. I liked what I did,
Right.
but 2 years in, we owned 50 doors, making 5,000 a month cash flow. And I knew that this was, as a matter of fact, about a year and a half in, I couldn't even sell mutual funds anymore. Because once I understood real estate, I couldn't sell mutual funds anymore. Yeah. And so
what was so much more attractive in real estate for you versus your traditional financial investments?
Well, one was, I didn't own the company, so I didn't have any control over. We sold mutual funds, and the premise where there was long-term buy and hold,
Right,
and
right.
the managers manage everything, and they're supposed to follow a certain philosophy. Oh, there were so many times, Jeff, that the markets went down, and it was like, well, what happened here? Like, what's going on? And it was frustrating for me. It was okay for the people that were young and they could build it back up again, but
Right.
it happened to my retirees, and it just hurt my heart to see that happen to them.
Yeah.
And so when and actually how I got into real estate is clients of mine were taking some money out to buy in real estate. And I'm going, why would you want to get into an asset class that pays you like 3% a year? I didn't understand it. A lot of people think financial advisors know everything.
Right.
We are taught by
You're very
I was taught
stovepipe. Yeah. Stovepipe.
mutual funds and life insurance, and that's it. I had no idea.
What
So
was the
once
rest
we
of the
took
world?
our
Right.
education, found, mortgage pay down, your Robert Kiyosaki says the number one way to wealth is to buy an asset that somebody else pays off for you.
Right.
And then
That's
tenants
true.
pay it
Right.
off for you. I had investors that would invest with me so we didn't have to use our own money. And that was how we were really able to scale it too.
Interesting. So was it like was the attractiveness mostly like just money, easier, less work? Or
Well,
just because it
might
was
have
like,
initially been that way, but it never turned out to be less work, just different work,
okay, okay.
The myth of passive investing is
Passive income is silly. I have
Yeah.
passive income, but you have to go back in time and join the Air Force when you're 18, stay in for 20 years. Then you get passive income. That is literally passive income.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
What I liked most about real estate is the wealth building.
Okay.
Like we built our wealth very quickly because you can make $1 million on a building. You can get a $400,000 payday, and not even counting the cash flow that you're getting. And that's the part I really like. I love those big paydays, and especially if they're tax free because they're loans actually on your refinance. You refinance your property, pull out the cash. Your building keeps paying for it, but you
Right.
get the cash. I love all that kind of stuff. And I love the mortgage pay down because to me, that's like our retirement. We're over like probably about $30,000 a month just a mortgage pay down alone. Well, that takes care of all retirement stuff, and we don't even have to think on that end anymore. And now it's just lifestyle. How do you want your lifestyle to change over the years?
So do you like hire a team to help you do all this stuff?
Totally. You know what? That is a strength of a C student, Jeff, right?
Right.
I don't have to be the smartest in the room. I don't have to be the best, and I'm definitely not a perfectionist. So one of the things that we learned very early on, because, we had 50 doors in 18 months. We were on Robert Kiyosaki's, we were inducted into his Hall of Fame for using all the strategies we were taught and building up a cash flow of $5,000 a month in 18 months. And
That's pretty good.
You know what it was? It was. But I still remember him saying the key to wealth is getting somebody else to pay off your assets. If you want a car, you should have an asset that pays your car, and somebody else should be paying for that asset. So I loved it. But we would go back to those conventions, Jeff, and people who had been in the education realm for way longer than we had.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4 properties. And
They're just thinking small, basically.
That was part of it, was thinking small. But the other thing was they got stuck on those 3, 4 properties because they insisted on being the property manager and being the maintenance guy. And between those two things, they had no time to build. And, we both, my husband and I, had good businesses as a financial advisor. He had a trucking company, doing what we did, making money. Our intention was never to leave that. Our intention was that we had
as investors, right? I don't want to be doing this. I want to invest in this, right?
And keep making money here to keep affording that.
Gotcha. So you kept your other businesses going to start with
for a while.
Right,
I did.
Right,
my husband kept it for about 10 years after, but I 2 years in, I sold.
But that's huge though, because that means that you've got other cash flow, which
exactly
sort of like until you can get other people's money going.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because I got my practice paid out monthly over a 4-year period, so that I always have income coming in. That helped me.
That's a good idea.
Transition from here to here, right?
Yeah, and it helps with taxes too, because then you don't get that lump sum.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it helped for him too. And I got premium price. I think I got 3.5 times trailers, which when most people were getting 2 times trailers to sell.
Wow.
So it worked out in a multitude of ways. But the biggest key is we hired property manager right from the start. One of our partners, initial partners, was a property manager. And then they looked after all the maintenance and all that kind of stuff. Right. So that freed us up to keep.
So you're not fixing toilets and sinks and things.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I found when we went back to those conventions. People who were stuck at 3, 4 doors.
They were trying to do all the labor on their own.
They wanted to save themselves a couple $100
to save money. to save money, which is, okay,
It's
good, because
crazy.
I wouldn't want to do that anyway.
So that's where, like I said, that C brain cut
The
in.
C student, right?
Yeah, and go, well, I'm not good at property management anyway, so why would I try to do that when I
Wow.
can pay somebody $100 a door to do that? And maintenance, well, my husband, even though he has a trucking company, he wasn't get into the maintenance part, so we hired that out too, and that's what allowed us to grow. And
Nice.
and to this day, Jeff, I do have some management still, but this by the end of this year, I'm going to be 100% out of that. And mine, I raise capital. That's it.
Good.
Other people look after everything,
Right.
everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. Very good. Yeah, because I shouldn't admit this, but I should really be a renter for as much as I want to do in my own house.
Yeah.
I just can't, because I know I don't want to throw my own money away.
Yeah.
So I know I need to own. I just kind of don't want to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I
can see
mean,
that.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how much I don't want to do stuff around the house. I mean, I'm a
Yes.
computer nerd. So, like, if your router's broken or you want me to configure something on your hard drive, I'm your guy. If you've got some plumbing issue, don't call me.
I know, there'll be water everywhere, right?
Actually, it'll just be off all weekend.
Yeah, that would be out. Let's just turn that button off till I can get somebody over here.
I can tell a story. I thought it was going to be easy swapping out this toilet valve when I owned my condo in LA.
Uh-huh.
And I went in there and the water was now off, and I only had the valve at the wall, right? And the main for the condo. So the main was off, and I was trying to swap out some easy little thing, right? I think something inside the toilet wasn't working, right?
Yeah.
But in order to swap that out, I had to screw off that valve thingy, right?
Yeah.
As soon as I put the thing on, the whole thing just disintegrated and it was gone.
Yeah, crumbled.
Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
ah!
Now what?
and the water's off, right? So now you got to call a plumber, and it's an emergency.
Exactly.
So that's a double price. So now I don't touch anything. If anything to do with plumbing, I just call the guy and say,
That
come
is
whenever
great.
you want, but come fix this before I
Yeah.
break it. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
That's okay.
So let's talk about like that. The first time you went like right into a multi-family kind of thing, like multi-unit.
No, we did
you
probably
didn't.
have single families at first. Our we were scared of everything at the beginning.
Of
Jeff.
course,
And,
of course.
So
I would
our
be
first
horrified.
purchase-
You already can tell. Like I barely don't want to buy a house. I barely
a
want to buy
condo.
a house. Yes.
Yeah, our first one was a condo. We didn't have to worry
Nice.
about furnace, roof,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Was
They
there a
also
garage
had,
or was it just apartment style?
just apartment style?
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And they also had a rental pool, so they would guarantee your rent. It was less every month. They would guarantee your rent if you went in the pool too. So there was kind of a
Oh,
few
wow.
things that I liked about it.
Yeah.
But
So it's kind of like got training wheels on it for investor.
yeah, exactly. That's what it was, and it was perfect
It's
for us
perfect,
for
yes.
the first one. But we went up to look at those buildings, and my oldest daughter, by now she was out living on her own, and here she was renting one of them. And so I asked the realtor, I go, well, is that one for sale? And he said, yeah. He checked his list. He's actually, it is. And I said, well, I'll buy that one then, because I already have a renter that I know pays her rent, because the way I was always, you pay your rent first, right?
Right.
And
Okay.
so we bought the one she was living in. So we had a good renter. And then she'd been staying there a couple months by then, and she got to know the couple right beside her. They'd been living in the same unit for 17 years.
So good
and-
renters.
So I said, I think we'll buy two. We'll buy the one next door too. So we bought the second one.
Wow.
Didn't quite work out as planned. They ended up leaving a couple months later.
Oh,
by
no.
their own.
Wow.
But by then we were already in. So, we found another tenant. We never did go into the rental pool because we felt like we were losing $80 a month. And I mean, my daughter was one of the renters. I didn't want to lose $80 a month by going in the rental pool when I could just get it myself. So we kind of took baby steps that way. And we got
Gotcha.
it. So
Gotcha.
yeah, that was our first two. Then we bought a few more. Our third purchase was entirely with other people's money. So
how does that work?
Oh,
Get into that other people's money, because that is kind of like the secret sauce that you usually have to pay to hear about.
Yeah. Well, we always knew by taking our classes that eventually we would have to start using other people's money if we're going to grow in
Right.
any way, shape,
Sure.
or form. And so the third property was a house that was in a neighborhood where my daughter used to live. And the one of her boyfriend or something phoned us up one day and he said, "No, there's a rental house for sale in this area. It looks brand new," but it wasn't brand new, but they'd made it to look brand new. They put new siding, new windows and all this. So it was really nice. And so we ended up buying that property. We gave her full asking price if she would hold the financing for us, like the down payment. So we had enough money to put the down payment in, and it was sitting at the lawyers. And then when we got the mortgage and paid her out, she left that money in. It was $32,000. And but we had to explain to her how it worked because she didn't know. We said, would you do some seller financing? And she goes, "Well, how does that work?" And I said, "Well, if you would leave the $32,000 in, because we have the money, but we want to do other things with that money.
Right.
We'd pay you 6% interest on it, interest only. And it was $160 a month, I remember. And we did a 5-year term, interest only. And we just paid the $160 a month. And she was happier than heck. She said, "For once in my life, I'm going to win twice on a deal. I'm getting full price and I'm getting 6% of my money." Because if she'd have put it in the bank, she would have got like 2-3%.
Right.
So that was how we got our first fully financed deal. We did pay the legal fees, which was like $2,500 or so.
Right.
But that property, it was an up down, 2 bedrooms up, 1 down, fully contained suites. Cash flowed us $1,000 a month for 5 years in a row. And we used to have people that would say to us, "Well, I think you kind of overpaid for that property. Like you paid $160, probably could have got it for $150, $155. And we said, "Yeah, we could have. Or we could get $1,000 a month for 5 years and make $60,000 when you wouldn't buy it over $5,000.
Because it broke some math rule. Who cares?
So we always said it's not about what you pay for the deal, but what the whole deal
the whole deal pays. It's almost like a total payout plan, right?
Yeah.
Over time. That's smart.
Exactly. Yeah.
Smart.
And that was our start. So then from there, every property we bought was either on a refi or with other people's money.
Nice. So when I was walking around, so when we moved to LA in 2017, my wife, she was having a hard time pulling away from her job. So she stayed in LA, which like it was supposed to be like a month and it ended up being 4, right? Because she just couldn't leave. So while she was doing that, she was staying with a friend. And that friend was staying in a really nice up-down kind of apartment in a multi-unit in San Pedro, California.
Okay.
Really nice place, though. I mean, inside. On the outside, it was sort of like me, but it's California. It's Southern California, so it's like, people don't really judge the outside so much. The curb appeal is the threshold is very low. But anyway, it just got me started walking around this neighborhood, right? And there were all these 4plexes and 6plexes, and I'm like, wow, these people are making bank. There's no way I could buy one of these, but you figured it out. So how do you do that?
Well, I think that's where my background as a financial advisor came in. I got told for years, Jeff, by wealthy people. We'd talked to them about mutual funds that had earned 10, 12% over the years.
Right.
And they would say to me, "You know what? If I got 8% consistently, I would be happy. You can keep your 12. I just want 8, but I want it consistent. I don't want this, the up and down."
Too much stress, right?
Too much stress.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in most cases, no physical asset for people to touch either. So we started right locally with local investors so they could drive by, they could see their building. And we talked about that. And we talked about mortgage pay down. The tenants are paying off your asset. We have to qualify for the mortgage. We're 50% owner because we're going to find, manage, run the deal. You're 50% owner because you're putting in all the money. And that's how we always did it. So they were passive investors. They had nothing to do with it unless they'd show up for an annual meeting. And other than that, they just got their checks every quarter. But we were the active managers, and that's how we built up our equity. So once the investors were paid out, they stayed in the deal and received their cash flow, but only 50%. Then we got 50%.
Oh, wow.
At that point. Yeah.
Interesting. And then you own the asset.
We'd own the asset together, 50-50. So the investors would own it 50 and we'd own it 50. Now, there's creative ways for us to own more than that.
You could eventually buy it out if you wanted to.
If you wanted to, but
or buy them out like one at a time, or yeah.
Or there's ways where we can take higher ownership possession just on how creative we got with the deal. For example, we bought $3.5 million deal 2 years ago. And we started out looking for $900,000 in capital, 50-50 deal, but we got $350,000 vendor financing, and we got 85% first mortgage position. So we really didn't. We only had to come up with maybe another, $130,000. So we ended up owning 90% of that deal.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So that's another.
So just it varies based on the deal.
How to get creative on those deals, yes.
So if you need to make up, say, like $100K, do you go out and try to find 10 people with 10K? Is that sort of like?
Well,
or does it break out? However,
it generally is more than that, because when you're working with a lender, they really don't want to work. First of all, you got to have when you're dealing with multifamily in Canada, you have to have 25% net worth of whatever mortgage you're getting. So if you're getting $1 million mortgage, you need to have $250,000 net worth.
Okay.
That's where your investor money comes in, because that'd be 25% down, but all your closing costs and everything else like that.
Right. But you're paying those, right? You're usually paying
the building pays all the costs. Yes. But the net worth has to be there to get the mortgage. And your investors are on title and mortgage with you as well.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. So you don't want 10 people with 10K.
No, you want one person with 100 or four people with 100, Yeah. And our minimum was pretty much always 100.
Okay. But then that means you only need one investor, and it's easy to pay them off, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Easier just manage, even the lender doesn't like to deal with like 10 or more investors, it's just harder because you got to.
It's more work. Yeah. Then you're talking about admin, kind of like maintenance fees kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So have you ever heard of these people that like are doing, what is it called? Like house hacking?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you've heard this term, right? So it's like, I want a fourplex, but I'm going to live in one.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever done anything like that? Or
Yeah. We didn't live there ourselves. But I have worked with students and we teach them that sort of thing too. So, and even friends and family and relatives, when we first got into real estate, we say, instead of renting your kids when you move into the city for the kids to go to university, instead of renting for all of them, which is going to cost you $1,000 each, put 5% down on your second property for the kids, have them have one space, rent out the other 3-4 spaces. Your kid lives there for free. You make money every month and you own an asset, so
that's smart.
15,000, whereas they would pay for one kid, 12,000 over a year for rent.
Right.
They own it. Right. And so we help many, many people do that sort of thing right there.
That's brilliant.
And,
that's smart.
And with apartment buildings, it doesn't work that way. Like you can't be one of the ones living in there. But there's many other benefits to it too.
You can't do that in Canada.
Not live in there. I mean, you could live in there, but the because of their finance like a business, income versus expenses. If you didn't pay rent on that one unit, your income wouldn't be as high as you need it to be. So you would have to pay the rent.
You have to pay the rent, right?
Yeah, to keep it even financeable.
But I mean, you're paying the rent to you. So that's okay.
Yeah, sure. You can do that way.
Right?
Yeah, but it can't. It's not It's not kind of like the house hacking and how the house hacking works. But that's
house hacking. People are just like using the rent money from the other units to pay the rent. Well, you could do that.
Yeah.
You could do that. But what you're saying is you just can't get away with not paying the rent on one unit.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've never gotten that deep. I always just assume that you're using the money from the other units to pay the other rent for the one unit you're living in.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Oh, this has been a blast. So talk a little bit about, as we wrap up, so ednakeep.com, how can people best get in touch with you to learn more about your stuff?
Well, my email address is also edna@ednakeep.com. So
Perfect.
that's the easiest way.
Okay.
And basically what I've done, and it happened organically too, Jeff, people just kept asking me, how can I do what you do?
Right.
And now I have a whole program that actually teaches people systematized way to do
nice.
exactly what we did. Yeah.
Very good. So so are you selling that on your website? Is that
I am. And it's called, the program's called 90 Days to 5K. And the premise there is that in 90 days, you'll know exactly what it's going to take for you to be making $5,000 a month.
Wow.
On a monthly basis.
Right.
And it'll probably take you 6 to 18 months to do it. My average student between 6 and 18 months to make that happen.
That's good. And if you don't want to work as hard, can you do 2K and work half as much or something?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just a smaller building, right? Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. But you can tailor it to how much you want to work. So if you want to work really hard, you could probably make more than 5K.
Oh, I have students that are like 20, 25, 30,000 a month.
Right.
2-3 years in.
They're young and they want to work.
But they're and they're buying bigger buildings and helping more investors.
Yeah. My whole thing now is I've found this. Have you heard this financial independence, sort of like retire early? It's kind of like a movement.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Like Mr. Money Mustache is like one of the flag carriers out there in the blogverse. Yeah. So I've been working on that, right? And I have kind of hit my number, and I still have a job.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Some people choose to do that, especially if it's a job you already love. Yeah. Then I like it.
I kind of like it. I don't know if I love it. Right.
Have you ever played Robert Kiyosaki's game Cash Flow 101?
No.
Well, he's got a game, and it's a little bit like Monopoly, but you're in the rat race, you're going around.
Right.
And, when you get out of the rat race is when your day-to-day expenses are covered by your cash flowing property. And when that happens, you flip the board and you're out of the rat race. And then the deals that are coming to you, Jeff, $10,000 a month, $5,000 a month. Over here, it's like $100 a month, $100 a month, $100 a month. But when you pass your expenses, then you're over. $5,000. Buy a business for getting $5,000 a month. Buy this business, get $10,000 a month. That's what it's like in real life. When you've got your bases covered, all that day-to-day stuff where you don't have to worry about that anymore, you free up your mind to start thinking bigger, then you can be dealing with the big boys.
I like that. It's like you start playing Monopoly in the real world.
It is. And it is so much fun. It is. It's just like that.
And you're not even worried about passing go because you don't need that paycheck every week.
And when you're in the rat race, Jeff, if you don't ask for your paycheck, you don't get it. But when you're out of the rat race on the other side, you get it, even if you
just wake up
to ask for it. Exactly. No matter what. It's just like money going in the bank. Can't be lost.
That's great. That's great. Hey, Edna, this has been a blast. Thank you so much. I appreciate you hanging out with me for a little while. You have a good one.
My pleasure. Okay. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.